right, so this lesson talks about plant structure. So what are plants made of? That's what we're going to be talking about. So you'll be referring back and forth with me to the book as I go through it and show you pictures and talk through it, and also be taking notes, okay? So, what comes to your mind when you hear lettuce, carrots, tomatoes? What do you think of?
Healthy vegetables.
Salads, healthy vegetables, absolutely, which is good for you. And they do taste yummy, especially with good dressing on them. So,
Anything healthy so unhealthy.
well, it does, and that's a good thing. So, first thing we're going to talk about is the external structure of plants. Okay? So, we're on page 167, roots. Now, roots are very important because roots anchor a plant in the soil. It absorbs the water and then it dissolves the minerals. It's the energy feeding process. Okay? There are two main types of roots. We talked about these last year. There's a taproot system and there's a fibrous root system. Okay? So if you look at the book on page 167, you see a taproot and you see a fibrous root. All right? A taproot system has only one or just a few main roots, and they're pretty thick and long. Okay? All right. So, whereas a fibrous roots have many thin roots sort of fraying out every 7. All right, so fibrous roots have clusters of roots, and pretty much they all stem out in mostly the same sizes, but grasses, type things like that typically have fibrous roots, okay? So there you have it for stems. All right, so stems. Plants' stems produce leaves and branches, and at a point that is called nodes. Nodes. Okay? So depending on the type of species, each node may produce a single new structure or a multiple structure. Stems are also carry substances to and from the leaves to the roots. The trunk and branches of an oak tree are stems. The trunk and the branches of an oak tree are stems. Now, they are woody stems. We talked about that. There are woody stems that are hard. They're not very flexible. We talked about herbaceous stems last year. And they are softer and more flexible, typically green. Yes. Now, so monocot. Go over to page 168. So we're going to talk about dicots versus monocots. We also learned about this last year as well. Now, we talked about that, blah, blah, blah. So monocots, so plants have vascular bundles, okay? And these vascular bundles are evenly distributed through the stems in monocots. Well, in dicots, they form like a ring. Do you remember that chart last year that we had that had monocot? Last year in 6th grade science. We had monocot and all right, it's speaking of the stem. And it tells us here that the monocot has, here's your stem. And remember how important these vascular bundles are to the plants because it's how the water and the nutrients come from the roots up through the plant and feeds the leaves and all those things. So they're talking about the vascular bundles. Bear with me here. vascular bundles. Okay, this is the difference in the vascular bundles of the monocot and the dicot. The monocot is randomly here, there, everywhere. Okay, there's like these are like little holes. Okay, that comes up from the stem. Now, for a dicot, it's in a circle like this. I'm just going to draw that larger just so you can see that. Yeah. Okay, so a dicot, especially the dicot monocot, so the dicot's vascular bundles go in a circle. Like this. Okay? That's what we're referring to the stem and the vascular bundles of the stem. Okay? Now, moving on. I'll give you a minute. So, monocots, vascular bundles are scattered. Dicots are in a circle. Important job. They are important to the plant. They make the food for the entire plant through a process called photosynthesis. We've talked about that many times. Now, the leaves are designed, the structure of the leaves are designed to help the leaves accomplish whatever tasks that God intended for it to accomplish. All right, so it's got a diagram here on page 168. It looks like skin, but it is a diagram of a leaf. All right, now this is the parts of the leaf. All right, so everybody find number 1. It's the top part, and that is called the waxy cuticle. Now, that covers the outer surface of the leaves, and if you notice that a lot of times leaves look like when water falls on the leaves, they just fall, it just kind of slides right off. It's because it's got like a wax, like, let the water roll off the duck's back, because the duck's back has that same type of texture where water just sort of rolls right off, okay? It doesn't seep down in like a sponge, okay?
We're on page 168, right?
Good. So let me go back to this, and then it's got the diagram. So also make note that sugar, the sugars made by the leaf cells are used throughout the plant. So the leaf cells, the leaves have cells in them, and those cells are used for sugar and are used throughout the plant. Okay? Now, good. Everybody got that? Yes, ma'am.
So, in the same house that we had that big carrot farm, we would always, I forgot
Okay.
what it's called, but it's like when you...
Now, here we are talking about the structure here, and you will notice that number 1, and I'm going to, you don't have to fill this in. I want you to look at it in your book at the same time, but this is number 1, and that is the waxy cuticle.
Is it waxy?
W-A-X-Y-C-U-T-I-C-L-E. Now, remember that helps the water, helps to prevent water loss through evaporation, okay? Number 2 is the palisade layer, and that's referring to, and I'm just going to write it over here in your book. Well, let's just do it here. That's your number 2, which is your palisade layer. P-A-L-I, right? S-A-D-E. Now, what is the palisade layer? Well, this is a tight package of cells, and this is where most of the food is made in the plant. The cytoplasm in the palisade layer cells, they circulate the you guys with me? The chloroplast, so that each of them get plenty of light. Okay, so palisade layer is important to get, yes.
Who came up with these?
So now let's move on to number 3. And you see it there in your book as well. And these are the veins. Number 3 are the veins. Yep, they got veins too, just like we have veins. And these are where the vascular tissues of the leaf. And remember, I told you this is referring to the vascular bundles.
We don't have to write this in our book.
No, it's in your book right here. I'm just talking through it, okay? So then number 4 is your xylem, Xylem, right? And that is what moves the water, I think. Moves water and nutrients into the leaves. That's what it does. It has to do with moving the water and the nutrients through the leaves. And then the phloem is here, and that has to do with the sugar. Phloem. So yeah, that is the vascular tissue that moves that finished sugar to the leaves. Okay? Number 6. Everybody see number 6? It looks like it's right there where the peas are. They look like little peas. But what they are, that is called a spongy layer. Okay? You never know. You could see these questions on the test as a bonus, so you might want to pay attention. All right. Stomata or stoma is number 7. And what's the purpose of the stoma? Well, go ahead and read that for us.
Are openings in the underside of the leaf that allows gases to move into and out of the leaf.
Very good.
Guard cells on either sides of the stoma regulate the size of the opening.
Yeah, you see the little brown things? Those are speaking of the guard cells. And then lastly, we have number 8, which is referring to these little dots, like right here. And that is your, basically it's the green pigment chlorophyll. We'll just put it, that's what it says there in the book. So, green pigment chlorophyll. All right, now, and this is what gives the plants its beautiful green color. Okay? Now, moving on. So the rings tell us how old the year. Do you guys remember what we learned last year about the rings being larger or being smaller?
Yeah.
What that meant? What did that mean?
If the rings were larger, the tree had a better year. And
It had more nutrients and water, right? Exactly.
If the
Good.
ring was smaller, you got less water.
Exactly. Good job. So annual rings form and can be counted. The outermost layer is called the cork. Okay? Yes.
One time we were chopping down, not a tree, we were like cutting.
All right. Now, so continuing on with the bark. So the outermost part of the bark is a cork. You ever thought about that? You ever been up a big tree and you felt that bark? It does kind of feel like cork, doesn't it?
I've never felt like a cork.
Okay.
I don't really know what cork feels like.
Okay. Well, so the cork cambium is a layer of living cells just under the dead cork, okay, which is underneath the, it's a layer of cells just under the dead cork, and this constantly divides through a process called mitosis, right? It doesn't tell you there, but I think I'm telling you right. Let me make sure. Yep, mitosis. And that produces new cork cells. Because remember, the cambium is the part of the process that will grow to make the tree or the plant larger. So as trees grow larger, the trees and the trunk don't actually grow larger. They basically expand. You can take it how you want it. They grow larger or maybe they expand. Anyway, that's, but now, how does a plant stand? Well, the cell walls of millions of plant cells can support the weight of an entire plant because cellulose contains, the cell walls of plants are made largely of cellulose, okay? And which is made of long chains of sugar and molecules. You don't have to write that part down, but just know that cellulose contains a lot of energy. And the cell walls of a plant, well, we talked about that. All right, so plants are supported by not a trigger pressure, but a turgor pressure, which is a kind of pressure caused by the presence of water inside of a plant's central vacuoles. So the more water inside the vacuole, the greater pressure within the cells, okay? And that causes it to swell and become larger, okay? I think I'm going to come back. All right, one more little thing to talk about, and then I'll dismiss you guys, okay? Now, I will be grading notes in your book at the end of chapter 9 for chapters 8 and 9, just so you know.
When was the test
Like
gonna
based
be?
on neatness?
Not for a week or so.
Based on how much we have.
Based on, not necessarily neatness, but yes, neatness as well, but that you got everything there. I've got some terms I got to hand back to you guys as well. Okay, so let's quickly talk about one other thing here, okay? So, some plant stems contain an abundance of fibers. Now, why and what's the purpose of the fibers? Well, the vascular bundles there are there supported by these thick walled fiber cells, and the cell walls of fibers are so thick and strong that they can stand alone for the entire plant. So, fibers are used in trees to make what? Why is that important? To make rope and cloth. God give us everything that we need to make everything